What's up, everybody? In this video, we're coming at you from Giant's Causeway, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Northern Ireland. And in this video, I want to walk you through one of the most important concepts in not only recovery, but also in life. But in recovery language, the way I describe this is as positive versus negative sobriety. Now, negative sobriety, as we're about to get into, is one of the biggest traps in recovery. It is the strategy that almost everybody attempts to deploy in order to successfully recover, and it universally fails. And in contrast, positive sobriety is the strategy that actually works. So without further ado, let's get into it. Negative sobriety is the gravest mistake that I see people make when they're trying to recover from pornography addiction, or really when we're trying to accomplish any kind of transformation or change in our life. Negative sobriety is a mentality that tells us that we can accomplish the change or transformation or healing that we're seeking by trying to fight or go to war with or deprive ourselves of the things that we're trying to change. Now, in reality, when we embark on the strategy of recovery, we're doing three very unwise things. One, we are creating a vacuum. When it comes to something like an addiction, our addiction and the associated behaviors, so in our case with pornography addiction, the associated behaviors might also be things like video games, compulsive shopping, compulsively eating takeout food. It might be doom scrolling on social media. There's a whole host of these kind of dopamine juicing behaviors that we might be stuck in. Now, in reality, each one of these behaviors is serving an emotionally soothing purpose for us. We have some kind of emotional distress or pain, whether that's stress, anxiety, loneliness, shame, boredom, whatever it is, these things are providing us temporary relief from the emotions and pain and discomfort that we're unable to find healthy ways to soothe in our day-to-day life. Now, if we try to get rid of all of these behaviors all at once, what we're essentially doing is creating a giant vacuum in our life where we used to have some kind of emotional soothing, albeit counterproductive and destructive forms of self-soothing. But when we create this vacuum and we don't fill it with anything else, we're going to find that, as the saying goes, nature abhors a vacuum. Something is going to come rushing right back into that space. And if we don't replace all of these things with a healthy alternative, what we're going to find is that usually that thing is porn. The second unwise thing that we're doing is that we're actually swapping one obsession directly to another obsession. The characteristic thinking pattern of somebody who struggles with a pornography addiction is that we are suffering from an obsession with sex and self. We are obsessing about pornography, we're obsessing about ourselves, we're obsessing about our quality of life, our pain, our problems. And when we try to quit pornography or recover by just depriving ourselves of pornography, of just trying to fight it, of just trying to stay away from it, what we're really doing is just alternating from an obsession to watch porn to an obsession of not watching porn or fighting against it. We are still thinking just as much or nearly just as much about pornography and our addiction and the related obsessions, except for now we're just going in the opposite direction. The goal of recovery is to move you out of a headspace where you're suffering from any kind of mental obsession whatsoever, not to replace one obsession with another. The third unwise thing that we're doing, as I just mentioned, is that we are depriving ourselves of all of these vices or these things in our life that are actually providing us with some sort of positive emotional self-soothing, although it's very short-term and in the long term is very counterproductive and self-destructive. But the reality is that if we take away all of the soothing, all we're doing is leaving ourselves with all of the pain. And to extend this further, the roots that are driving our porn addiction in the first place are typically deeply intertwined with things like shame, negative self-judgment, negative self-criticism, self-abuse, self-attack, self-rejection, self-neglect, self-abandonment, and the list goes on. So when we go to war with our addiction and we're trying to fight our way into healing, and we're taking all of the feelings that we don't like having and the version of ourselves that we don't like being, and we're trying to push it away, what we're really doing is communicating to this vulnerable part inside of us that needs healing, that it is bad, that's shame, that it just needs to go away, that's self-rejection. Or we just try to ignore those feelings, hoping that if we ignore them for long enough, maybe they'll change. Well, that's self-neglect and self-abandonment. Or we're trying to communicate to ourselves that like how you are right now is not good enough. You just need to be different. You need to feel different. You need to act different. You need to be a different person. Well, that sounds a lot like self-abuse, negative self-criticism, negative self-judgment, and a lot of self-attack. You see why this strategy doesn't work? When we embark on a path of healing and transformation from a position of trying to go to war with the part of ourselves that really needs healing, we're actually just throwing gasoline on the fire that is leading to the formation of our addiction in the first place. One of the biggest red flags that I see, both in myself and in all the clients that I work with, that tells me that somebody is pointed directly at relapse, is that they are alternating obsessions. As we talked about before, the obsession with pornography is coupled with the obsession to stop watching pornography. Now, I see this in my clients as an obsession with lust, and they're binging on pornography. They can't seem to find a way to stop. And then it shows up in the opposite way when they are constantly and compulsively and obsessively thinking about how they can stop watching porn, how they can fight the feelings of lust, how they can conquer the urges, how they can change the way they feel. The list goes on. I'm going to dive on a brief tangent here into the world of psychoanalysis from the likes of Carl Jung and explain something at a high level and rope it into this. And that is the idea of a shadow trait. Now, I'd like for you to imagine that there is a triangle. On the bottom of the triangle, there is the two polar opposite dysfunctional manifestations of a trait. And at the top of the triangle is the properly integrated, healthy version of the trait. Now, this is very interesting because it tells us that with every dysfunctional pattern, there's actually two poles to it. Putting it into this context, what we see is that the obsession with watching pornography is actually coupled and tied with the polar opposite obsession with not watching pornography. But both are still manifestations of the obsession. The healthy point we're trying to get to is freedom from the obsession to watch porn and freedom from the obsession with watching porn, such that our sexuality is now integrated into our life in a healthy way that is free from compulsion and obsession in any form. Now, I'm going to read to you off of a list here of some of the traits that I see when somebody is caught and stuck in negative sobriety. This is what it looks like. Hyper-focusing and hyper-stressing over every single urge that we have. Every single moment of lust that pops up, and massively increasing our obsessive self-monitoring for urges, obsessively focusing on all the ways to deprive yourself sober and say no to all the things you want to keep out of your life. Are you focusing on positive, productive, meaningful, enriching things, or do you have a list of things you're trying to deprive yourself of? That is negative sobriety. Obsessively avoiding triggers. Are you building a prison to live inside of? Are you focusing on every little thing in your life that is causing you to have a feeling you don't like having and building avoidance strategies? That is negative sobriety. Identifying with your addiction as if it's who you are. It's an identity or a feature of you that will never heal and never go away. The reality is that addiction is simply a process disorder that emerges out of certain emotional and spiritual roots. And once these roots are healed, your addiction will heal. Once these roots are healed, the causes and conditions that are bringing up your addiction in the first place will go away, and the addiction will go away with them. Next, spending so much time obsessing over what you think recovery is when you're really just trying to deprive yourself sober, that you don't actually do the actions that constitute actual recovery. Recovery is the exact same thing as practicing, building, and living a more joyful, connected, meaningful life that you love and that you want to be a part of. And next, focusing obsessively on all the things that you've done wrong, that you're doing wrong, that you might do wrong, on all of your shortcomings, on all the ways in which you don't stack up, attempting subtly to complete the impossible and delusional task of abusing and hurting yourself into healing. Fighting against pornography, fighting against our addiction, paradoxically keeps us stuck, looping in patterns of self-sabotage and relapse. The reality is that if your path of recovery, if your program of recovery does not connect you with a more loving, more meaningful, more joyful, more enriching, more purpose-filled, and more connected life, it is only a matter of time before that vacuum that you left where pornography used to be gets filled right back up with pornography or with something else or with a combination of pornography and other things. As Socrates said, the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. If we truly want to win, we paradoxically need to give up the fight against our addiction. We must surrender to win. Nate coming to you from a different location now. The audio got messed up at the very end of the last clip, and so I'm recording a new ending for you guys now. I hope you guys got a ton of value out of this video. If you have any questions or comments about positive versus negative sobriety, drop a comment down below, or if you had any other insights or had any questions or things pop off in your head, please drop a comment down below. Let me know and let's start a discussion about it. Now, if you guys are struggling with pornography, if you are trapped in cycles of self-sabotage, if you're trapped in cycles of relapse, if you have been using negative sobriety unsuccessfully to try to solve this problem, and you want to learn about how to integrate positive sobriety into your recovery so that you can actually find freedom, I want you to click on the link in the description below and book a free call with me. Your life is too valuable to waste in cycles of relapse. So let's get you broken free. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.